started. Thanks for all of you for coming. There's so many presentations offered at the same time. Glad you came here. I hope everybody got a handout. If you want more, there's some in the back there. I don't know if the conference is going to put these online or not, but we hope they do, as well as the PowerPoint that you'll see up here. My name is Fred Roecker. I'm a teaching learning, one of the teaching and learning librarians in the Ohio State University Libraries. My colleague Tingting, who's, let's see, we're going to do develop assessment and
multimedia.
Multimedia. I always forget your title. Things, teaching and learning and multimedia assessment, those are things you don't usually think about in the libraries, but that's becoming a bigger and bigger portion of what we do. So we want to talk to you a little bit about the online game that we offer and how you can make your own. So many people talk about games and they're out there, they're extremely expensive, their ideas, they never come off the ground. Even libraries that we've dealt with have created games in their libraries and they last for like a year. And they don't have the funding to support them, they don't have the technology, they don't have the people going different things. This game has worked for over 4 years now with almost no technical support, no breakdowns, nothing. So we'll talk about the background of university libraries just for a minute, and mostly how we develop the game and how you can develop the game for yourself. Then Tingting's going to talk about the data we've collected to kind of see, did it actually fulfill the goals that we had outlined for this project? There'll be a chance for you to ask questions, and if you have a question as we go along, I'd be happy to answer it right then rather than waiting till the end and you may forget it. And then if we have time permitting, as my wife says, the grace of God and long-handled spoon, we'll do a live demo and see, we'll keep our fingers crossed that it works. The background for us goes back all the way to 2006. The university creates an orientation program for all incoming freshmen that are done over the summer. They come to campus and they have a lot of projects they do and different people that they meet to learn about the programs at Ohio State. Well, we were approached by the Office of First Year Experience, who organizes these programs, to say, you know, there's no introduction to libraries. And there's no way that we could run 6,000 students through a library tour and try to point out what skills they need and the resources. It's just completely impractical for the libraries, for them, for the students. So their idea was, what can we do to get the libraries involved in this orientation for new students and not impose on their time that they're already doing for their orientation. So they want their goals, of course our goals are the same thing, provide orientation in the libraries and so on. They want to give it to the students before they get on campus. So when the students arrive, they are already familiar with what sort of resources are out there, what sort of buildings are there, what sort of services are there for them. We had also found, it's not so true these days, but back then, even in 2005, 2006, students were still intimidated by the libraries. They look at that old Thompson library and it's like, oh, I'm not going to go in there, and there's too many books, and I don't know. I'm going to stay in my room and go on to Google. So the students still had an intimidation factor of both the resources and the buildings. And finally, First Year Experience has found in their orientations, they used to do an orientation for the students, and the parents would come, they have a separate one for the parents. And the parents all migrated over and said, what are you doing with my students? All these helicopter parents. So now the orientations are both for parents and students at the same time. They said, if you're going to do something for the students, we want the families and the parents also involved. So if anything you can create, can the parents learn, do it, whatever, at the same time? And of course, this was done in March of 2006, and they said, can you have it ready by September? Or actually by August. We said, well, no. So what we had to look at was even how to do this. So first we created a team. And a couple things as we go along, I'm going to just kind of say, this is my advice to you if you're planning on doing your own. The first one is keep your team small. Keep it small, that can really make decisions and actively meet quickly. Each one has their own project, and you can meet, sometimes we met daily, sometimes we met weekly. But with a large group of 8 or 9 people, it's very, very difficult. So we start off with 3 librarians already on staff, so you don't have to hire anybody new. And then we have to design what this game is going to be, secure the funding, what content it's going to have, what's it going to look like, all those kinds of decisions before you start hiring programmers, people who are going to do evaluations, because then you're paying for their time while you're still in kind of the, what am I going to do now space. So we went through and did a lot of the work before we ended up hiring graduate students, Tingting, to do the assessment. And then later on, almost at the very end, we hired a student programmer to make it look good, to make sure the back end was good, where we could collect data, get assessment, how many clicks are on this site, those kinds of things that really we needed somebody to program. But once it's in place, this program, it becomes much more directed than it would had we just start off with a person and said, what do we do now, and help us with this. We also talked with a few on-campus and off-campus consultants along the way who advised us of what we were doing and how it was looking. Most of the problem I found with when I talk to people about games is the funding. How are you going to deal with it? Arizona State had a large game that they used for a couple years, but it cost them about $40,000 to make it and about $23,000 a year to maintain it. And everything that went wrong, they had to rehire their special programmer to come in, tweak it at X number of dollars per hour, and go back. And they just didn't have the funds for it, so that project is gone now. We used our existing personnel. Almost everything you have on the handout, there's a list of freeware, the software we use. Almost all except for Captivate was freeware, and we already had Captivate on our library desktop computers. We were able to secure administrative support for this project, basically to multimedia software, which had already been purchased for Captivate. The student hours were very limited, so we had to make sure we used them exactly, we let them know exactly what we wanted them to do. We had a few survey costs, and then we also did provide incentives for the students each quarter to make sure, okay, here, if you do this, you'll be in a drawing to win this. And that was, we were able to get more people involved because of that. So for the library's point of view, it really was a very small investment of money. And they did that once, and yearly incentive fees, and from then on the project has really run by itself with no extra funds needed. We did a survey of about, after 4 weeks, what did you do in the libraries for students, incoming students? Had you been in the libraries? What tools did you use? What do you feel about the libraries? And Tingting's going to talk about that. But we also asked them, if you're new to the university libraries, what sorts of information would you like to have? What would you like to know? What haven't you been oriented to yet? And the things that they said was, we want to know where the libraries are located. Many students didn't know we had more than one library. We want to know on the map where the libraries are and which one is closest to where I'm going to be, my dorm, my college. We also want to see some short movies and some digital stories. And finally, some interactive games and puzzles. That was what they thought would be really good for an orientation that they could get. And we would suggest that we would put it on a CD. And our original idea was to get it on a CD, mail it to them, in kind of a cool looking package, and they would play this. And many, many students said, this sounds like a really good idea, but I'm not sure I can play it. So you're already starting off and you're like, oh God, we're going to create all those things and no one's going to want to do it. Our first shot through was what I really termed a serious game, a quest kind of thing, where we wanted them to learn how to use the catalog to find a book, how to find an article, use the web, etc., explore the libraries, where the library is located, things like that. And they would have, we had these sort of medieval Lord of the Rings kind of thoughts of creating these games, and they would have to do them in order to go on to the next quest, the next game. And when they were done, they would have skills. This could be tied in with the Buckeye book that all freshmen read too. So they would have to find, do we have a copy of that book in the library? Can you find reviews on it? What library, where's the library located that has that book? Those kinds of things could be done. But the problem with it was, we spent about 6 months on this. And then realized with consultants and our test groups, our beta testing, was the students really thought it looked too much like an assignment. They're getting this in the summer, remember. They're out of school. And it looks like skills, it looks like having to do research. They didn't want to do it. So we kind of re-geared, we threw the whole thing out, the 6 months worth of work, and just started over again, with the idea that we would make it more of an orientation session. So if you go to a library, or you go to, let's say, to a museum, and you take a tour of that museum, nobody says, well, go over to that wall and why don't you paint a picture? Or why don't you do that? You know, it's all, we have this picture. Isn't this a great picture? Isn't this kind of like this picture? And did you know we did this? All the things you promote yourself. So they can be interactive, but they're not having to do assignments of academic sort. And a casual game is something they can learn immediately, something they may already be familiar with. There's almost no learning curve to understand how the game goes. It's very easy. They can complete it in just a couple minutes. It provides a general overview. As I said, we're focusing on the positive. It's easy. It's like a tour. So by changing that, we realized everybody would be able to play, and they'd be able to be done in, let's say, half an hour, 40 minutes. And most students would be willing to give that time, as opposed to a serious game, which might be something that's ongoing, that would take them, months to complete. One of our consultants said, don't put the setting of the game in some medieval Lord of the Rings kind of setting with dragons and wizards and things like that. Set it on the campus. You want them to know where the campus is, you want them to know where libraries is, use that as the game board. So this became the opening screen of the headhunt game. And you can barely see here, but there are red dots, red balloons, over each of the libraries. And there is a screen, a small pop-up window that automatically comes up when they access the game that says, here's how, just click on the balloons, complete the game, go on to the next one. So by clicking on these, the first thing they realize, even if they don't even play the game, they can see we have X number of libraries, more than one, which is already, we're ahead of the game than we were 5 years ago. When you click on this, it brings up a window about that library. This is the geology library. Here's its address. Here's interesting things about it. Did you know we have this in the library? Did you know that we can do that? This one's open 24 hours a day. So they're getting peripheral information without them even having to work for it at all. And then each of the things will have play the game. Watch the video for this one that are related to each one. The screen at the top, you can see here, the game is that someone has stolen Brutus Buckeye's head and hidden it in one of the libraries. Your job is to find it. So each one of these games that they successfully complete, they get a letter. And the letter is a random letter that goes in one of these. So this person has already gotten one letter in there. And at the end, they can unscramble these letters and it will give them the name of the library, which has Brutus Buckeye's head. They enter that, and then they have completed the game, and they're entered into a drawing for the major prize. The kinds of games we have, well, you can see we gave them all kind of fun names. Things like multiple guess, multiple choice, way, no way, which is a true-false area, call numbers, they have to put books in a different area, and so on. But you can see a crossword puzzle. Who hasn't done a crossword puzzle? And you make it easy, you give them hints along the way that they can all complete it. This is what the jigsaw puzzle looks like. This is close to the dorms. They can identify whether they're living in north, south, east, or west part of the campus. And there's a map for each one of those, and all I have to do is drag and drop. The beauty of this game is, too, when the drag is in the correct place, it goes beep, beep, and it locks in there. So they can just kind of take one if they wanted to and just kind of wrap it around. Is the goal that they have to learn how to do a jigsaw puzzle perfectly? No. The goal is they have a little bit of fun, they see where their dorm is, and they see what libraries are next to them, and they can complete that in just a few minutes. By the way, on this handout that I've given you is the URL for the game. You're all welcome to play it whenever you want. You just log in as a guest. It's no problem at all. You can do it right now. So please feel free to try it out for yourself. Here's our multiple guess. And this is, I put this question up here, you probably can't read it, but it's the one that comes out in their evaluations if they remember this. Any person who does not return an OSU libraries item within 10 days that is being recalled because it was requested must pay 10 cents, $1, $10 a day. And they don't know. We haven't told them that information, they just guessed. And if they guess 10 cents, a window comes up and says, sorry, the actual amount is $10 a day. Next question. And they are. And they go through, we have probably about 50 questions. They have to get 10 right. If they go through the 50 and they haven't gotten 10, it just starts them over again. So they learn it by guessing and being told, okay, you're right, you're wrong, you don't have to start over again, whatever, you just keep going on. And this one comes up that many comments have said, I didn't know you had to pay $10, not just for a fine, when someone has recalled your book. And that's a concept that's very difficult for a lot of students to get. This is our Match the VIPs. These are various people involved with OSU, former library directors, Jim Tressel, who is head of our renovation fundraising committee, of course, John Glenn collection, and they just read a little bit about them, drag them up there, and they learn about those people as they go. We do let them rearrange books on the shelf, and probably nobody knows how books are arranged on the shelf except for librarians. So they just click and they drag it up here. And then they click and say, check it. Nope, wrong, you only got 2 right. So the 2 that are correct stay, and the others go down. And they just mix it up. And maybe they realize how these are ordered from A to D to DC, and hopefully they'll get that idea. If they don't, okay, they have to stay on the screen until they actually figure it out. And there's another one that does call numbers by their cutter number in here as well. Those are library type things that they probably will use when they actually get there. This is just databases we have with descriptions. This is very similar to what the original screen looked like for the software, very basic. And you can see that some of the ones before it, we can dress it up a little bit. So when you do your programming, it looks like this. The student programmers then made it look more interesting and pretty like that. This is our one we use Captivate for, using the library's homepage and the catalog search. There'd be a question, where would you click to search for a book by title? And they move the cursor around and they click on this and it says yes, or no, whatever. And once they've answered the 10 questions, they get their letter and move on to the next one. Again, they don't have to do a live version, they don't have to learn exactly how to do it, but they see, here's what the screen is going to look like, these are the options that might be available to me. We also have some videos that we've created. These are mostly created through our digital storytelling project, so we're not creating them. We've created a few in the past, but mostly these are ones that are contributed by people going through the digital storytelling, so it's at no cost to us. We just stream them on there, and they can look at those, access them through other libraries as well. We do offer them some incentives. A letter comes out from First Year Experience in around the middle of August to say the game is now available. It gives them a little description. Here's the URL, and these are what you can win. If you complete it, you are eligible for a drawing for Barnes & Noble gift certificates. We usually have one large thing like an iPod or a digital camera that's usually around for $200 or $300. The movie tickets were donated by the Gateway Theater. So again, the cost for all of this probably maybe about $600, and that's pretty much the cost for the libraries each year. So, does Headhunt meet its goals? The goals that we looked at in 2006 for First Year Experience and for the libraries, well, yes, it does provide orientation to the libraries for 6,000 or 10,000 or however many people want to do it. A note goes to the students, and a separate note goes to their parents and families to say, your student is playing this game, now you can play along with them as well. So we are contacting the students, we are contacting their families. It's given out before the students come to campus, so they are familiar with it, those who play it. And as I said, it's available for families. The real question is, though, does it do them any good? Are they getting an orientation that is useful to them? Is it fun to play? Are they completing games? Are they able to learn something about the libraries? And finally, for us, are they less intimidated? Are they willing now to go into the libraries? Are they willing now to access our resources more so than they were in 2006 when we did the baseline survey? And really, the main thing for us is it fun? Are they playing it? You send out a note to 6,000 students and you think, well, is anybody going to do it? And it is amazing how many students do it each year. So I'm going to turn over to Tingting now for the analysis of the data.
I just want to go back to this slide and mention one thing quickly. You see all of these incentives? You think, oh, the students may not be playing the games just because the games are fun, but because of these. Well, I can tell you each year, actually, there will be some left over. Students just wouldn't bother to come to pick them up. So that tells us something. You know, they didn't really just play the games. Well, a few students did mention in their comments, you know, oh, give me the iPod. I want to win. I want to win the incentives. But the majority of them mentioned not the incentives, but the actual content, how they enjoy the games. I'm going to show you a few quotes from their comments. So I just wanted to mention that to you. And then, now from this slide on, I'm going to give away all of our secrets, or if Fred doesn't mind, or maybe just not all, but a few of our secrets. Well, first thing, you want to make sure that you play test your games, or usability test it. I found a pretty good article. There's a huge amount of articles, books, online resources, everything on the topic of gaming, but only a few of them that I found are about usability design, user-centered design in this area. This is critical, in my opinion, because if you don't make your game really user-oriented, you know, if you don't understand what your students or users want, chances are you're going to lose them. They're going to quit. First 5 minutes, if it's not captivating their attention, they're going to quit. So this is absolutely critical. If you need the citation, I can give it to you after the presentation. Actually, I just searched in one of the research databases like PsycInfo, you know, educational technology. Any of those research databases, if you enter the keywords like usability design, user-centered design, and then game-based learning, you're going to get a few articles like this. So creating games isn't really as simple as, you know, I know the mechanics, I have a good programmer, then I can do it. It involves some brainstorming, some design, some clever, you know, planning in there. And stress test, we did have one in the first year to make sure, you know, when we have more than 200 players online, can our server tolerate that? And then we have 3 main sources of data to help us evaluate the effectiveness of the game. First thing is we have a comment form built in the game. So as soon as students finish the game, when they have the correct answer, which library the head is hidden, they are taken to that evaluation form. They fill out that form and tell us how interesting they think the games and the movies are, and any comments. Second source, perception surveys. We had one bottom line baseline survey before we ever launched the game in 2006. So that's like before everything. We have this baseline data. And then we repeat the survey almost every year after that. So we can compare the results and see if the games really made any difference. Third source, I didn't put it on here. We also have its database. We have a database behind the whole game. We have a programmer now. Our student programmer then became a staff member now. So he managed the whole back end, and then he provides us the data. So we know the game usage data, like how total number of users, which games they played, which movies they viewed, and then that sort of thing. So this is the baseline survey in 2006, and we learned that we have a few questions there. If you need a whole questionnaire, we can give that to you for your information. And then this is what we found out. We administered that first survey 4 weeks into the fall quarter, and we found out that 29% of them had, the student respondents, freshmen, had received the library introduction, and 64% had visited one library. And their comments indicated that you know, they did not know what library sources were available and had difficulty finding what they need. So, here's, like, I'm going to show you some of the trend. This is the preliminary, the finding from our preliminary analysis. Our analysis so far has been exploratory. I haven't really done any rigorous statistical testing, that sort of thing, but that's our next step. We want to see if the difference is really statistically significant. But at least right here, we're showing you the trend. Now here's something interesting. Now in the first 3 years, 2007, we launched the game. Of course, we do some maintenance and revision and content update every year, but you can see the trend here up to now. More students are playing the games, and more students are completing the games. We noticed something strange there, and Fred, do you want to chime in here? It's a significantly small number of players and a much lower completion rate. Our speculation is, my point is, the timing is very important. You lose that timing, you lose the players. So if you want to create some orientation games like this, you're very sure that you send it out early enough. So look at that nice trend, and something happened here, and it throws us off the track. So, but then here's a little summary of our evaluation data. I hope people in the back can see it. From 2007 to 2010. Now, we asked students to rate how interesting they think the games and movies are, on a scale of 1 to 7, from not interesting at all to very interesting. So higher the number, the rating, the better. In 2007, well, you can see over just at a glance, we had, the ratings are slightly better in the last 2 years than in the previous 2 years. But we noticed that call number has consistently been rated by students as the least interesting among all games, probably because it's the most difficult one. Because I can't really figure out how to order the books by call numbers. But Close the Dorms, that's the jigsaw puzzle, the flash game, has been rated the most interesting. And director's speech, not so interesting maybe, but a renovation movie has been always popular. And then this year, we had some new movies. The CGA collections is the cartoon museum and library. Well, if you look at the difference, it's not so big. It's not like way below 4. 4 is like the neutral point. And below 4 would be not interesting. So everything is above 4. That's good for us. That's good to know for us. And then Foundation Stone is most popular movie this year. So a few comments. Now I think when you collect data, qualitative data like this are at least equally important, if not more, than the quantitative ones. The numbers tell you something, but not all the details, like why they give you this rating, what didn't go right for them, what went wrong. So now here are some positive ones that I'd like to brag about. I can assure you, this is before any systematic content analysis of the comments. We have a lot of comments that we can do a very good content analysis on. But I did put the comments in roughly 3 categories, like positive, negative, somewhere in between the interesting, thought-provoking. And here are the positive ones. I want to point out to you, here's one student who mentioned, it's nice that I can just learn about the libraries without having to sit and read websites, like long documents. I can just play some casual games and receive some of the most important information. And then I feel like I have a better idea of how to take advantage of what OSU libraries have to offer. Now, comments like this, over 90%, I can assure you, more than 90% of the comments, student comments, we collected through the evaluation forms were like this. These are representative ones. That's really encouraging to us. That tells us something about the effectiveness of the games. Not everybody fill out the evaluation form. We can't really speculate, those students who filled out that form are really representative of all the players, but at least it's some evidence. And then, let's see, I learned the last 2 comments, I learned the different influential people who were involved with the library system. And I learned you have to pay $10 fine if you don't return a book. Specifics like this, we were surprised to see these in students' comments. So information like this really registers. You know, this is just casual game.
What do you consider thought-provoking as opposed to positive and negative?
I'll show you that slide. I have some more examples. So to sum it up, like I said, the majority of the comments tell us they really enjoy the games and learn a lot about the libraries. I want to mention quickly, we also have family members who play the games as guests, and they left some comments. And for example, this one here mentioned, I thought it was going to be some silly game, but really learned a lot. And then there's another one that commented, it's entertaining, useful, and I want to share with my daughter who will be attending ONCC. So we're achieving our goal there too. And there's another one, I learned a lot, but would be anxious to see if my daughter likes it or even does it. So there's some family involvement in there. Now, interesting, thought-provoking comments, not so positive. They're all pretty easy, but I was, okay. The games were sort of dull at points. Now, I can tell you about 2 to 3 out of 200 comments were like completely negative, really. It's like, oh, this is a waste of my time, boring. But it's just 2 to 3 out of a few hundred. And a few of them, like, close to 8–9% of all the comments were like this, that tell us something. Now, sort of dull at points, and then you have to keep trying until you got the right answer. And then lots of questions. For Wayne Away and multiple guests, a lot of the questions overlap. They're the same, talking about the same thing. So there's redundancy in there, which prevents us from learning as much as possible. And then don't make it so easy to complete the games, like close the door. So what does that tell us? I mean, it's not like the majority of students want really difficult, challenging games. But I want to mention right here a concept, a psychological concept some of you might be familiar with. It's called flow. Shizun Mihai. So the idea is that you want to make really engaging games. You want to create the optimal player experience. You want to match the challenge level to their skill level. And most of the times when students, when players experience that flow state of flow, chances are the challenge level and their skill level are both relatively high. But that's not the case that's not what we have in Headhunt. So these are thought-provoking. I'm not sure if we necessarily want to go that direction, make the games really challenging, because after all, this is just a small number of students who mention this. So
one of the things with games too is we're using hot potato software, and it comes packaged with free games. So it has a crossword puzzle, it has a matching, it has a multiple choice, it has a true/false. Those are already built. And then we say, well, let's make it a little harder. Well, now you're starting to talk about custom programming, and even things like, can we do a word search? Can we do a hangman? Something like that. Those are easy, but they're not part of that package. So now you're going into a whole new ball of wax to hire somebody to do that, make it work, or whatever. So that's why we didn't do them harder. What really I like about this is to say, okay, you repeated questions, so we didn't learn as much. Okay, so we can go through and find, which questions are repeated, so they're getting a broader range of information.
Now, lastly, we didn't force the students to. We can't really force them to do anything, but we didn't do anything special about movies. We just put them on there. They don't earn a clue by watching the movie. So there's no way, and plus there's no easy way technically to keep track of how many students clicked on it and actually finished watching the video. It's possible when we haven't implemented that. So a lot of the comments on movies indicated that students, a lot of them, didn't view any of the movies because there's no compelling reason to watch them. And this student here is suggesting making them mandatory or incorporating them into the games. I'm not sure if that's a good idea. We probably will lose some players that way. But for the few who did watch the movies, I learned about some very great people who had such a great impact on the university. I liked the behind the scenes of the foundation stones that's in the Thompson Library, giving us some of the history behind it. That was cool. So the few who actually viewed the movies gave very positive comments on the movies. Now here's some more data from our perception surveys. Like I mentioned, we repeated it almost every year, but not in 2009. So again, we have some good trend over there. Questions like, I can't find online resources. This is our baseline data. Anything in red, it means non-game players. Anything in black, players data. 2006, almost 20% of student respondents indicated they couldn't find online resources on their own. And look at the data for the following 2 years. And almost half of them in 2006 thought libraries were not conveniently located. Well, slightly lower percentages. And look at 2010. Oh, we didn't have data, exact same question. We modified the survey questionnaire a little bit, so we don't have the corresponding data here. But if you look at this is player, this is non-player. Not a big difference, but if you compare it to previous years, that tells us something. 20% don't know how resources are going to be useful for me. Look at that baseline data in all of these for the following years. And here, there's a relatively bigger difference between players and non-players. And I'm not confident using library resources. That's something that's a little perplexing. So baseline data, about a quarter of the students indicated they were not confident using resources. And more students in the following 2 years indicated, I mean, these are students who have played the games, and yet they thought they were not confident. I mean, more students indicated they were not confident.
Maybe they didn't realize what they didn't know.
Exactly.
I think that's our conclusion, that
The
people
more you
don't use the
know, the
library.
more you realize.
Yeah, the people don't use the library things. Hey, I can find whatever information I want. And as soon as you say, well, this is an academic database for quality articles, oh, I didn't know about that. And then the students start saying, well, I better start using those. I'm not sure, because we don't really teach them how to use it. So they're starting to say, well, there's resources I really need to know. I find that a very interesting set of data, but I could also, kind of squirm out of it and say, here's what they really mean.
But across the board, you can notice like a big difference here. The numbers for last year, and you compare it to the years 2006 to 2008. Something must have happened there.
What's nice about that, you had a smaller group of people too that you tested to get these to get this data.
Yeah, it still holds up. A large cohort or a small one.
Yeah, for the survey perception surveys, our sample sizes range from 200 or so to 400, 500. So it's not a big group, but if you compare that to like the whole freshman 6,000 each year, that's, I don't know, probably a reasonable response rate. So here, the blue columns indicate how many of them have visited a campus library. Red have used libraries' online resources. And this is baseline data. So more in general in 2006 and 8, and 7 and 8. More players have visited a library and used online resources. But if I show you data from 2010, this is player data, this is non-player data. You can see, I probably put it in there. The red actually for 2010 is like how many of them have actually visited a library? Close to 100% of them. Why? I mean, if you recall what we saw on the previous slide, there is also a huge difference. I think Thompson reopened in 2009. 93% of these students in 2010 had visited Thompson Library by the time we administered this perception survey. That's why we think. But if you look at the percentage of students who had used online resources, they're still much higher at least than some of the previous years. Okay, last couple of charts. Then I'm going to show you the mechanics of the games, how to make them, like software we use. So last couple of charts, 3 more questions here that show us some interesting trend, also from the perception survey. 3 questions. I'm not sure which library to use. I don't know what resources are available in the library. Libraries seem too imposing. So Now, judging from the wording, you probably know, lower the score, the better. Because that means they disagree with these statements. So in other words, more confident and more knowledgeable. So 2006, baseline data, this is a nice trend. So players in 2007, 2008, they tend to disagree more with these statements. They tend to think, they tend to be more confident. They think they know what resources are available. Now again, if I show you data from 2010, this is non-player, this is player. What do you think? This one here is a good trend, but not a big difference there. Now, if I put it in that context, you compare this to that. This is, don't know what resources are available. So overall, 2010 student respondents indicated they probably know what resources are available. Now, too imposing. And then unsure which library to use. So overall, I think students are making progress. They have improved. I mean, not really improved, but this, at least this cohort here, they think they know better than students from previous years. So I mean, just some general trend that are kind of interesting. And finally, ideas in future directions. New games, we learned from student comments, maybe we could add a couple of games, word search Hangman. And we probably want to pay attention to the challenge level, maybe not to make some of the games too easy to complete. And some better ways to incorporate movies so students, more students can watch them. Game-based learning, how about, I mean, this is for orientation. How about games for classrooms? To really target, with the goals to improve skills, research skills, for example. We're not sure if, we want to apply games in that way. So, and finally, assessment. What other more effective ways could we assess or evaluate the effectiveness of the games? So that's all about the data. I'm going to show you really quick, not a complete live demo, but here is the login page. We have, over the years, we have thought hard how to simplify the login process, and eventually we made it happen. We have students or anybody affiliated with OSU to sign in with Shibboleth authentication. So, and a few of us, Fred and I, and the programmer, and a couple others, have the administrator privileges, so we can show you a couple more features behind the scene. So, like Fred mentioned, this is the map as the main game board. Can you see the location of the balloons there? Okay. So
and you can't see it, but the balloons change color. There's a little gold star on the balloons. Right. Those are unvisited libraries.
On the computer screen, it looks better. Yeah.
Yeah. The libraries that you click on, but you don't finish the game. It's just a red balloon, and if you finish it, it turns into a gray balloon.
So, which one is the architecture library?
Farther over to the right. No, to the right.
This one here?
Yeah. Down.
Okay.
There you go.
We have too many libraries. So, architecture library. Oops, we have to fix that image there. But, for example, architecture library has this Way No Way game, which we made with hot potatoes. That's also on our handout. It's a freeware. It says, their website says, if you just Google hot potatoes, we didn't give you the link because if you Google everything on there, your first result should be the right one. So if you go to their website, they said it's not open source, but when I created, customized the interface for our games, I found out it's just pure HTML with some JavaScript. That's it. So you don't need really a hardcore programmer to customize these games.
And believe me, that came from me because the librarians would create these games, the way, no way, the true, false, or whatever, all those questions in hot potato, and they really looked, basic. then you turn it over to Tingting and Jimure, and they would make them look beautiful. So we could, even us who had no programming skills at all, could actually create most of the games, and then you turn it over to somebody, so their specialty becomes to just make it look nice.
So let me show you real quick what it looks like. If you just click on the game, so here's the interface, and then the background image, I replaced the original solid plain color with some background image, and then customize the buttons a little bit. You know, if you know a little bit cascading style sheet, HTML, you can do that yourself. And then there's also an easy way to figure out how to change the total number of questions. Say if you have 60 instead of 15, you can do that. It's in their JavaScript. It's really easy to read. Their programmer did a good job annotating everything in there. So let's say.
Do you do all that with? Do you have to do that with HTML and CSS, or can you do it with things like Dreamweaver?
You can do that with Dreamweaver.
Oh,
I did that in
yeah.
Dreamweaver too.
Yeah, so that those people want to use the WYSIWYG.
Yes,
They can
yes.
do that too. Thanks, it's important.
So if you click on something and then it says, oh wait, you're right, and then it gives you this little feedback, that thing is also programmed in there. All you need to do is customize the content. So the feedback message is there, and there's a little image you can insert. So as long as you know a little bit of HTML, or if you use Dreamweaver, you should be able to do that. So how to put your content in Hot Potato? If you go to their website, first thing you probably want to go to downloads, or if you scroll down, you see this link. You can download and install. And then if you go to their tutorials page, trust me, there is a learning curve, but it doesn't take you like a month to learn it. A couple of days, a couple of hours on each day, you'll get a good hang of it. So.
Is it Windows based or
both? I believe now they have both. Okay, yeah. When we used it, they only have the PC version, I think. So, and the nice thing about their website is they also give you how to write good multiple choice questions. It's not like research articles. You have to read it just from the field, some good suggestions. And then if you click on standard tutorial for Windows, this interface is actually made with one of their products. They have 6. It's Library Star, I think, and G Crosswords for the Library Crosswords game. So, and their interface, a quick view. This is the, okay. So you put your questions in there. If this is J-Quiz, I think. If you were creating a multiple guess game, you put your questions in there, answer questions here, answer choices here, and indicate which one is correct. That's it. If you can bear with their plain interface. Now, if you want to do more, you really have to go to Dreamweaver and tweak the code a little bit. So, and across, all 6 of their applications, interfaces, they're all alike. Easy to learn. If you know one of them, it's easy to transfer your knowledge to the other. So that's the nice thing. And okay, 2 minutes. Captivate. This is what we mentioned. We used to make the click zone game. Well, I probably don't have time to show you the game, but it's a fairly expensive program. It's part of the Adobe e-learning bundle. I don't think it's available in any of the computer labs on campus. You'll have to buy it, but with the education discount, you can get it for about $300-400, I think. And then for the jigsaw puzzle, the Flash game, I went to the flashkit.com. I really like this website. If you just search jigsaw puzzle, it gives you a lot of the examples, so you don't have to build the game from scratch. You just customize, again, their action script, replace their images, there you go. You have your own game. I really like this one. A lot of Flash developer resources. And Symfony is the one we use to manage our whole game website. That's how we got our usage data. So, and there's Jim. If you Google Jim Muir, there's a young Jim, our programmer. So, any questions for us?
And our names are on the
handout sheet, or at least mine is. There's also contact information on the game itself, as well as some background information if you want to read a little bit more about what we did. But we'd be happy to answer any of your questions, either online or not. Is the next group coming in here already? Are you? Okay. I just want to make sure they have time to set up their own game. So, did you have a question?
I guess the question is, you have a period of time when you set out, go to this site, play this game, here's an incentive, and then that time stops. How much gameplay happens after that? Are you tracking it all? How many people are just